day learners, welcome to Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. My name is Salah Abubakar. I'll be teaching you history. The topic we are looking at today is the land and people of Nigeria. The learning objective: at the end of the lesson, students will be able to 1. Name the major ethnic groups in Nigeria. 2. Mention the major geographical zones in Nigeria. And 3. Identify the major characteristic features of the different geographical zones in Nigeria. Nigeria is a highly diverse country in terms of ethnic group. There are about 371 ethnic groups in Nigeria and 5 different geopolitical zones. The largest groups among these people are the Hausa and Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the west, and the Igbo in the southeast. When we are talking about diversity in Nigeria, we will look at the diversity in terms of ethnic groups. There are several ethnic groups in Nigeria, of which include the Hausa, the Fulani, the Yoruba, the Ijaw, the Isekiri, the Nukpe, and the Kanuri people. These are, and several other ones, are the different ethnic groups in Nigeria. When we also look at the geographical zone, Nigeria is also diverse as it has 5 different geographical zones, which includes the coastal region, the forest region, the Guinea Savannah, Sudan Savannah, and the Sahel Savannah. And we also look at the environmental nature. This geographical zone gives Nigeria a diverse geographical nature, and the geographical nature in terms of animal that exists within its shore, the type of food that is being cultivated, the plants, and also the reptiles that lives within the shore of the country. Now we'll be looking at the geographical zones in Nigeria. The coastal zones, which lies between Lagos in the southwest and Calabar in the east. We'll look at the forest zone, which is majorly within the southwest and the southeastern part of the country. And we'll also have the Guinea Savannah zone, and the Sudan Savannah zone, and the Sahel Savannah zone. This map here is showing the distribution of the geographical zone in Nigeria, whereby we have the coastal zone at the bottom part having Lagos here, and the Niger Delta region towards the Calabar here. Then we have the forest zone here having the Oyo town here and other southwestern and the eastern part of the country. We have the Sahel Savannah and at the top. We'll be looking and examining each of the geographical zones we have in Nigeria. The first one we'll be looking at is the coastal zone. The coastal zone lies along the shore of the country and is along the coastal area. When we look at the characteristic of the coastal zone include the vegetation, which includes the mangrove, the palm tree, the coconut trees. We also look at the kind of wildlife. The wildlife in the coastal region include the reptile, crocodile, different varieties of fish, and birds. When we also look at the climate has a kind of heavy rainfall, tall tree, and palm trees. Then we also look at the tribes and occupation. The tribes in the coastal zone include the Edo people, Ijaw, Isoko, Isekiri, and their occupation include fishing, farming, boat making, and salt extraction. Secondly, we'll be looking at the second zone we'll be looking at, which is the forest zone in Nigeria. When we are talking about the forest zone encompasses some part of southwest Nigeria, some part of the north central and the southeastern parts of the country. And when we are looking at the vegetation of the forest zone includes tall tree and thick bushes. And the example of trees that can be found in the forest zone include the palm oil, iroko tree, mahogany, rubber, walnut, and the obeche tree. And also this zone also experience heavy rainfall between 8 to 9 months in the year, starting from April, rainy season starting between the month of April till late October. Then we also look at the kind of wildlife that exists in the forest zone. The wildlife that exists in the forest zone include grass cutter, includes snail, monkey, antelope, warthogs, and other animals. Also, when we look at the occupation of the people in the forest zone, the occupation of the people in the forest zone include farming, fishing in riverine in some rivers. The scale of fishing in the forest zone is in small scale. It can be compared with those of the coastal zone, which the fishing in the coastal zone is in large scale. But the people in the forest zone also involved in fishing, but their fishing is in small scale. Farming, which is the major activities of the people in the forest zone, and even hunting, traditional hunting, fiber making, pottery, and dyeing. We also look at the tribes and the crops in the forest zone. The tribes in the forest zone includes the Yoruba, the Igbo. We look at the Igala people, the Ogoja people. And also the crops that can be grown in the forest zone include cassava, yam, rubber, and some other crops. Then we'll be looking at the Guinea Savannah zone. What are the features of the Guinea Savannah zone? The Guinea Savannah zone have long grasses and looped trees, and it experiences mild rainfall. Also, when we look at the occupation of the people of the savannah, their occupation include farming, hunting, animal rearing, and animal husbandry. The people in the forest zone could not rear animal as a result of some diseases which animals are being prone to, while the people in the Guinea savannah have privilege and of animal rearing. Then also they also involved in small scale fishing. Then the types of wildlife that can be found in the Guinea savannah include buffalo, elephant, lion, and wild cat. And lastly, we'll be looking at the crops. The kind of crops that can be grown in the Guinea savannah include yam, grains, millet, groundnut, and other fruits. Also, another zone that we'll be looking at is the Sudan Savannah zone. The Sudan Savannah zone has a similar characteristic with the Sahel Savannah zone, but the differences in them in terms of climate is that they still experience more rainfall than the Sahel Savannah zone, and unlike the Sahel Savannah zone, there are some trees that are still in existence and that still survive in the Sudan Savannah zone. They also experience scanty rainfall, low humidity, and severe dry season. And the crops that are being planted in the Sudan Savannah zone include groundnut, sorghum, soya beans, millet, and other grains. Those are the crops that are being planted in the Sahel Savannah zone. And when we look at the vegetation are short tree or non-existent of tree, grasses which are short grasses and similar to the Guinea savannah. Then lastly, we'll be looking at Sahel Savannah zone in Nigeria. This Sahel Savannah zone has some similarity with the desert, while even some part and edges of the Sahel-Savannah zone in Nigeria are desert. The characteristic of the Sahel-Savannah zone is zero or short rainfall in a year, and they also experience a very long dry season. They also the kind of vegetation that are there are short grasses, raffia plants, and acacia plant. And the occupation of the people there, they also engage in farming, but without irrigation, the people in this zone cannot do farming. They rely on irrigation solemnly for their farming, and also they also need heavy use of fertilization, which they have a local way of procuring it or producing the fertilization they are using for their plants. And they also engage in hunting and cattle rearing. Cattle rearing is a major occupation and and is largely part of the livelihood of the people of the Sahel-Savannah zone. So we'll also be looking at the environmental impact on human activities. It is important to know that the nature of the environment at which a people live in at a particular period of time has a lot to do in their social activities and economic activities, and it has a direct impact on their livelihood. We'll be looking at occupation, the type of works that people can do in the pre-colonial time or in the ancient era lies heavily on the environmental determinant, unlike today. Then the environment has a determinant factor on the kind of occupation people can do. Whether there is a river will determine whether they can engage in fishing, whether there is a fertile land will determine whether they can do agriculture, and even the environmental nature will determine whether animal husbandry can be done within that space. Also, we will look at housing. The mode of housing that will be built will be determined because the availability of raw material that will be used for the construction of building. For example, now people in the forest zone can easily build mud houses because they have abundance of red muds that are available, which can be used in the construction of housing. Also, we will look at dress. The mode of dressing, whether they will be wearing a covered dress, a thick dress, and even the materials that is available for the production of dresses that they will be wearing is a determinant of the environment. Also, we will look at the means of movement and transportation. For example, now people in the coastal region will make more use of water transportation, while people in the Savannah and the Sahel region will use animals like camel, like horses as a means of transportation. Also, the structure of the family is determinant on the environmental factor. Also, food production, the type of food, whether they can be able to plant tuber crops or grains, or even the availability of tree plantation, which will aid the consumption of food and the nutrition available to the people within that environment. Also, we'll look at the farming method, whether they can use direct farming method, whether there is need for irrigation, whether there is need to use fertilization, or a system of crop rotation will be implemented for effective farming season is also a great importance. And the economic activities, the trading, the means of exchange, which is whether there is availability of cowries during the olden days. The availability of cowries within the coastal region made cowries to be a means of exchange, while those in the north who has access to gold and the extraction of gold use gold as a means of exchange. And also the type of commodities and the availability of trade with external territory are all dependent on environmental factors. Now we are going into the practice question. The first question says that mention 5 ethnic groups in Nigeria and the geographical zones that they can be found. Number 1, we can find the Yoruba people in the forest zone. We can find the Ijaw people in the coastal zone. We can find the Kanuri people in the Sahel-Savannah zone. We can find the Hausa people in the Sahel-Savannah zone. We can find the Ishekiri people in the coastal zone. Those are the 5 ethnic groups and the zone we can find them. Also, there are several other ethnic groups in Nigeria, and the zone that can be found has already been treated in the topics. Also, what are the features and characteristics of the forest region in Nigeria? When we are looking at the features and characteristics of the forest region in Nigeria, number 1, we look at the existence of trees and large trees like mahogany, palm oil tree, rubber tree. We also look at the existence of thick bushes and forests. We also look at the existence of high rainfall, which lasts for almost 8 months between April and September or late October. Then we also look at when we are looking at the characteristic of the rainforest in Nigeria, we will look at the occupation of people living within the region. When we are looking at the occupation of the people involve farming, it involve fishing, it involve production of cash crops, and also production of weaving and fibers. When we are looking at the characteristics of the forest zone, we also another thing we will look at is the kind of animals that exist in the forest zone. The kind of animals include grass cutter, antelope, snail, warthog, monkeys, and other reptiles. Those are the characteristics of the forest region in Nigeria.
Eko Learners Support, a support program of the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education for WAEC and NECO candidates.
That's the end of today's class. If you have any comment, reservation, or contribution on the topics we have treated, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through the social media handle that is being displayed on the screen. Thank you.